This is one of the strongest sanction packages to date. Now, based on your analysis, what do you think actually stands out in this 18th round? What makes it so significant compared to the 17 before?
I'm not sure I share the exuberance of the EU foreign policy chief, because if you look back at the previous 17 over 4 years, so basically, less than 5 a year, after each one, you had officials in Brussels say that this was it. This would be the one. This would be the totality of sanctions that would stop Russia from attacking Ukraine. And of course, it hasn't worked. It's important to remember that when the sanctions first started, the goal was not to do damage to the European Union first, and then do damage to Russia, because the European Union was integrated with Russia, specifically with energy. So it was, hey, we can't do too much too quickly, because consumers are going to get hurt, voters are going to get hurt, taxpayers are going to get hurt. So over time, as Russia's integration with the EU has lessened, the sanctions have ramped up in terms of what they're doing toward Russia. And they have sequentially done more to impact Russia. However, Russia has continued to adapt, as countries under sanctions do. So where you would look at this 18 sanctions package and look at the vessels, where you're not just going after the vessels, you're going after the crew, look at going after the Rosneft, the Russian oil company refinery in India, and India being a huge purchaser of Russia energy products. I mean, those are all optically very good. But in the end, we have two big challenges, and that is, if you look at the trajectory of what Russia's looking to do in Ukraine, they're nearing what could be the end of their objectives, meaning the final portions of Donetsk and Luhansk, the Donbass area, solidifying at the borders the remaining territory, and then sort of call it a day. And that's where you have these sanctions then questionably doing real harm to Russia.
John, let's talk about Slovakia, who, of course, as we know now, dropped its opposition after they received these guarantees on Russian gas. They got their way. But what does this say about the balance between the EU unity and also national interest when it comes to sanctioning Russia?
EU is 27 sovereign nations. And while Ursula von der Leyen sits atop in Brussels as the president of the European Commission, she's not a head of state. She's not a head of government. She's an administrator who is elected appointed by the 27, and then by the 407 member of the European Parliament. So all it takes is one. And we've had Viktor Orban of Hungary. We've had the Prime Minister of Slovakia. We also have Greece that has issues because of their energy interdependence with Russia. Malta, so Cyprus. So this isn't over, because as one country gets satisfied, there's going to be an issue with another one. And then, of course, you look to the future, and the future European Union with Ukraine as a member. And it doesn't take a lot of creativity to think about Ukraine as a member of the European Union, number, let's say, 28. And then when the members of the European Union start to say, okay, the war's over, Ukraine's a member, we want to start re-engaging with Russia for a variety of reasons, 140 million potential consumers, energy again, et cetera. And who do they think is going to be standing up at every opportunity amongst the requirements for unanimity? Their group in the European Parliament, that's probably going to be, fifth or sixth largest. They're going to make the prime ministers of Hungary and Slovakia look like really team players in terms of what the Ukrainians are going to do vis-a-vis Russia down the road.
And how effective are they going to be? Dmitry Peskov says Russia has actually built up somewhat of an immunity to these sanctions. How much truth do you think there is in that? And how do you even assess the long-term economic impact that this sanctions and round of sanctions will have on Russia?
Well, I've traveled to Russia numerous times since the war started, and I make certain that I get out of Moscow and go to those areas that are affected, go to Kursk, go to Belgorod, and go to other areas to see how sanctions are actually impacting the Russian population, particularly in the larger cities where most of the concentration of financial wealth and political power. And he's absolutely right. My career's also been involving Cuba, which is under tremendous sanctions from the United States for 66 years. Countries adapt. They learn how to adapt. And then what happens is all the countries that are under sanctions, they all communicate with each other and they say, hey, this sanction was put on us. How did you get around it? Oh, that's a good idea. Then maybe we can retrofit that to try to help us. And so Mr. Peskov's absolutely right. Have the sanctions hurt? Yes. But have they crippled Russia, either the government's ability to finance the war or the defense industries, the defense sector's ability to make things that it needs to keep killing Ukrainians? And the fact is that hasn't happened. So Russia will continue to adapt, just like Iran, North Korea, China, and Cuba and Venezuela, among other countries. And it's very rare that you will see sanctions bring down a government. The governments generally adapt, and the people within the country, they may not like it, but they generally adapt to. The more elasticity a government has, meaning the more it can do without having to worry about its population saying, we just won't take this anymore. And Russia's a great example of that.
Well, let's dig a bit deeper into that, John, because as you said, 18, we're on now number 18 on these round of sanctions, and President Zelensky has welcomed the package, but he's emphasized there is a need for a lot more. So what do you think that suggests about Ukraine's current expectations? What do they want from Europe and the EU? And is enough being done?
From President Zelensky's standpoint, on the 25th of February, 2022, he wanted everything in the 18 sanctions packages since then to be implemented all at once. And he has said that. He has said that this drip of sanction packages, as welcomed and appreciated as they are to the government of Ukraine and the people of Ukraine, the bottom line is there's distance between the first to the second to the third to the fourth, and now we are at the 18th. And Russia continues to adapt. They continue to get what they need, particularly from China and North Korea and Iran with some of the drones. And so, if you give someone enough time to adjust and adapt, then yes, they're going to see a drip, a slow erosion of their ability to do what they want. But they're still going to be able to do a heck of a lot of damage. And that's precisely what Russia's continued to do with Ukraine. And so President Zelensky is saying, hey, this is great, but people, we gave you a list in 2022 of what you needed to do. And because you didn't want to impact your consumers and your voters and your taxpayers, you slowly ramped this up. Well, by slowly ramping it up, you did a lot of damage to Ukraine.
John Kavulich in New York, thank you so much for joining us.